whatever they need is right there for them, and they're providing them design services for free. The other part of the model is that Howden's provides discounts of sometimes up to 65%, and they customize it for every customer, and they also provide capital. So if I'm a builder and I have to redo somebody's kitchen, and I don't have the $10,000 to front for the cabinets and the appliances, Howden's extends them capital. So Howden's has kept a lot of these folks alive throughout the years. So I think that those have become sticky relationships. As far as continental Europe, it's early days for a lot of them, but frankly, I don't have a lot of discussions or things I've heard from other people that are telling me that they'll have the same degree of success they've had in the UK. It's still early on, and management will tell you that they've gotten to returns that are almost the same level of UK, but I think it's definitely unproven. The two things that do encourage me are that they just doubled their footprint, and they hired a CEO who has experience expanding businesses with tradesmen in continental Europe.
If I remember correctly, these are pretty low-end kitchen cabinetry systems. And I'm wondering if you looked at what happened to demand in the middle of the last downturn. In other words, are we underestimating, even if the UK goes into Brexit, right, and the economy gets soft, you have a lot of trade down from people who would be building much more sophisticated, quite frankly, nicer cabinets into these systems where the demand profile actually either just stays stable or even grows. So maybe we're completely mispricing this business. It could be even better than what you've got outlined.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think the company would describe themselves as going after the average consumer, but I think in reality it's probably somewhere below that. It's probably more of a value customer. I didn't do a ton of work on the pricing because it's very discriminate. They will give one person a price of $700 for a cabinet, potentially another person $1,100. Each manager, it's his own discretion. It's basically his own depot. And that's an area for me to further take on, but no, I agree there's potentially additional upside from that.
Can I ask a question a little differently? What's going to be the proof point to you that continental Europe is a success and that some subset of the depots could be supported there economically? And when do you think you could see these factors?
Well, I think the last half-year earnings report was they reported 5.3% like-for-like sales and growth in France, which is encouraging. But I think it'll need some time. I wouldn't expect a quarter or two from now. I'm thinking we're going to see proof points 3 and 4 years from now. These units usually take 7 years to mature. So I think the two things that I would be looking for would be continued like-for-like performance. And if you look at kind of the S-curve of how these depots mature on a sales basis, year 1 and year 2, it's not that big, but it's an S. So by the time you get year 3 and 4, you're getting into some pretty profitable points for these. So that the expansion they've done in the last 2 years should start to bear fruit in the next 2 or 3. So we should be able to see the proof in the numbers in the next 3 years. And then I think it's also fair that if we see them double down or triple down on their footprint and continue to accelerate their openings, that we have to wait to see the numbers, but I'd imagine that management would not be doubling down and opening more stores if they're not seeing the returns on capital that they see in the UK.
Do you see that in the next 12 months?
No, I think it's unlikely. So basically what they've told folks is that the CEO transition was announced last July, and the new CEO is now in place, but he's now technically the CEO. It's a glide path basically over a year. So the business will technically be his this summer. They've pointed to telling investors more about their plans for continental Europe this summer. So maybe we'll get some more after they hand off. I imagine he'll say, I've torn apart the business, and this is what I think we're going to do. I imagine there's some grandiose plan or presentation that they'll put together. But I think if you're just going to look at financial results, I think a year is not enough time to see the proof. It's just too early on. To give you a sense, at the moment they have 24 units in. As of the summer, they had 24 units in Europe. They have 642 in the UK. So it's still a very small part. It's less than 3% of sales.
And is 5% good? I mean, are you encouraged by 5%? It sounds good, but is it?
Okay, so 5% was like for like. The actual sales growth was 65%. And but that's because of the number of units they opened up.
Is that good? Is that
I think it should have been stronger. I think frankly, I would have wanted to see 10%. But the way they do like for like is they exclude the first 2 years. So actually the acceleration of the openings are not included in that 5%. So that 5% number, those are units that they've had in their system since 2005. So that 5% number is actually a pretty good number. But a 5% number on something that they opened 2 years ago, once it gets into the comp base, is unacceptable. It has to be double digits. Does that make sense?
Yeah, why do you think it's 5%? I'm sorry.
Okay.
Why isn't it?
So,
Why should we feel good about Continental Europe? That it's going to do what we want it to do?
so the 5% number was on all the units before the expansion in 2015, where they doubled the size. All those units, the first 12 that they put in France, were opened in 2005. We're now 12 years past that, and they're getting 5% comps on those. What I'm saying is when the new stores enter the comp base, that number has to be dramatically higher. There has to be a double-digit number. So in the next year or two, that France like-for-like number has to be in the double digits, or else something's wrong.
So we still don't have a lot, because those are old. We can't really count.
Yes, but yeah, I agree. That's why I think you may not see the actual proof in the numbers in the next year. You're going to need to see 2, 3, 4 years before this is really proven to you. I feel pretty good because the margin of safety I feel is pretty sufficient, and so I don't see a big chance we lose a lot of capital. I see a lot of opportunity to make money there.
But if it does work, that expansion is multiple expansion.
Yeah, the TAM just from France is several times the size of UK, and then you add Germany, Holland.
We really don't have any canary in a coal mine. We don't really know yet.
Yeah, I think the big risk, and nobody asked that much about risk, but I think the way you could lose more money on this investment is they think that the launch in France and Germany is going really well, but the margins aren't as strong there. So they invest more money there, and the overall results of the company don't look as good, and some investors get impatient, but I think
that's how we can lose more money.
if you're a value investor and you want to be in this for 3 or 4 years, I think you can wait past that point.
Did I hear you correctly, ex-UK is only 3% of sales?
Yes.
All right, so margins there are lower than mine, I'm assuming in the UK, right? So
Yes.
probably 1% of profitability,
I think that's fair.
which means pretty much the next 2 years it's about the UK, right?
Yeah.
Right. And so what I'm trying to understand is you have I think you mentioned the growth algorithm that you had there, and I think it had the depot growth. You're assuming 2% in France, 2%. I'm trying to understand.
No, it's roughly 3/4 continental Europe. I know I said roughly half. It's roughly 75% from the UK and 25% from continental Europe over the next 4 years.
Okay, so the majority of this same-store sales growth is probably the UK. So what gets you comfortable in the depot maturation and the cycle over the next few years they can deliver on those comps? Because you're assuming pretty steady state and somewhat accelerating comps going forward. I would assume that the majority of the next 3 years is driven by the UK. So how do you get comfortable with that comp momentum?
So historically, they've gotten 3% of a volume increase from this depot maturization, right? So opening up a depot, and then you have to wait 7 years until it gets to maturity. So I'm being hopefully a little bit more conservative because they're growing as a smaller percentage of sales because they're a bigger company now than they were 5 years ago. They've historically been able to take 1 to 2% price. So I feel.
What percentage of their depots are less than 7 years old?
25%.
So 25% of the sales are growing at a faster rate. Everything else, 75% is probably flat.
I don't know if I would say flat, maybe I would say GDP, but yeah, it's less than 3% for sure.
And then you get to like 3% from this 25% that's Victoria.
Yeah, well, 2%, then you add in 1% price across. We just raised prices last year.
The last part is just like, is this business like viewed as a cyclical where like the peak multiples are really 15 and the trough multiples are really 5 and we're really paying peak multiples for like this right now versus big pushing cost inflation?
I think it's certainly possible. I would say that maybe I made a mistake in actually making this graph go as far back as it does. And not to like cherry pick, but I mean, they were burdened with the MFI business, up really until like 2010, 2011. They had obligations that were burdening the business. I don't think. I don't think we really have the answer. Is it possible that we're paying closer to a peak multiple on closer to peak earnings? Certainly so. I think you talk about redoing your kitchen, and over 80% of the businesses redoing a kitchen. In recession, some people are more likely to redo their kitchen than buy a new home. So even if we do have a tough couple years in the UK, I think that's just a small period of weakness. I don't think it's really a permanent situation.
Well, because the reason I ask this is that if you just like never told us what this company did and you put up a chart in which that ROICs are over 100%, and then you told me like the business is only and it's growing, top line is growing in most cases, in some cases double digits, high single digits, EPS is growing straight, then I would say the multiple is going to be a lot higher. But the only reason that you would have a low double-digit multiple or something like that is because it's considered a cyclical business, and that means that's the highest multiple that you would have on it.
No, I think that's fair. There's definitely an element of cyclicality to this, and a few people that I talked to the idea about said, it kind of sounds too good to be true unless it has an element of cyclicality, and I think that's fair.
All right, we are out of time. Thank you very much. Yeah. I am tight on the presentation. I'm leaning on the judge. The judges have questions, and what the judges have. I'm the czar this year. I'm making the rules.
Mike's got a lot more data. Inefficiency.
One page.
He didn't write the rules, he just took advantage of them.
You're in. Yeah, okay. Same page.
Okay. These are for
Yeah, perfect, thank you. And we're gonna wait till Dave comes back, you just want to.
Judge, do you realize that as people get older, their eyesight gets worse?
up there.
Yes. We're just waiting for one moment. People needed to stretch their legs. Hearing us for the first time. It's good. I can say that off the reach.
Nice use of breakdown.
good for you.
What's the EV of this stuff?
It's like 4 million, about $1 billion in cash.
And what's the sales?
It's 3 times sales.
What's the EBIT margin?
23%. Sorry about that. Okay, I think we're ready. Well, let me know when you want to.
Whenever you're ready.
Hi, I'm Justin Weiss, and I'm pitching Euronet short.